GamingBolt presents the top 30 PlayStation 4 games of all time. It's been 4 years since the launch of the PlayStation 4. Even with the competition, namely the Xbox One, shooting itself in the foot close to launch, the PlayStation 4 still has become one of Sony's best-selling consoles. Not only that, but it's a destination for great games, some of which you won't find on any other platform. So let's take a look at the top 30 PlayStation 4 games of all time. Note that this list includes both exclusives and multi-platform titles. Middle-earth: Shadow of War. You could hop around the hate train for microtransactions, and we honestly wouldn't blame you. However, Monolith Productions' Middle-earth: Shadow of War is still a pretty good game with a vast open world to explore. The multitudes of combat options make you feel appropriately unstoppable, and the Nemesis system extends to longtime enemies as well as the epic new fortress assaults. It's not a huge leap over the first game, but Shadow of War is still worth playing. Final Fantasy 15. Much like The Last Guardian, Uncharted 4, A Thief's End, and any number of games over the past few decades, it's a miracle that Final Fantasy came out as it did. The story of Noctis, as he battles Niflheim, and the various demons affecting the world felt incomplete. However, there was a deeper story at play with Final Fantasy 15, one of camaraderie and immersion in a brand new world. Square Enix's stellar post-launch support and a bevy of DLC ensure that Final Fantasy 15 is one of the good, open-world RPGs available currently, fundamental flaws and all. Infamous Second Son. Sucker Punch's infamous Second Son isn't a revolutionary step forward for the franchise, especially with the karma system still pretty disposable. It's thankfully backed by some decent combat and open-world exploration, not to mention incredible particle effects in an altogether stellar rendition of Seattle. Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 and 2.5 Remix. The Kingdom Hearts storyline is probably harder to connect than all of David Lynch's films at this point. That being said, Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 and 2.5 Remix is a simply astounding value for what it offers. You get 4 stellar games with Kingdom Hearts Final Mix, Kingdom Hearts Re: Chain of Memories, Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix, and Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep Final Mix. The remastered cinematics of Kingdom Hearts 358, 2 Days, and Recoded may be kind of meh, but the games themselves are still incredibly fun to play, and yes, they tell some great stories along the way. Until Dawn. Low frame rate aside, Until Dawn is quite the cinematic adventure, crafting an intriguing story depending on the numerous choices made. Also, for a teen slasher, the characters are pretty interesting once you get to know them and inevitably send them to their deaths. With a mix of quick-time events, standard exploration, and decision-making, Until Dawn is a nice alternative to the David Cage style of adventuring. DRIVECLUB. To say that DRIVECLUB had problems at launch would be an understatement. Still, Evolution Studios didn't rest on its laurels, and as it fixed many of DRIVECLUB's biggest issues, the game truly began to shine. The beautiful visuals and accessible driving were further aided by content additions and new features such as bikes. Though it may not be the most realistic racing sim out today, DRIVECLUB does cater to a more relaxed style of play. YAKUZA 0. The story of where it all began, YAKUZA 0 arrived at a great time, introducing PS4 players to the world of Kazuma Kiryu and how he rose to become a proper Yakuza. The fighting mechanics have seen significant improvements from previous games, and the open-world areas of Kamurocho and Sotenbori are a delight to explore. Excellent visuals and full Japanese voice acting aside, YAKUZA 0 is a testament to jam-packing your world with entertaining things to do, even if it's a smaller size. Ratchet and Clank. Insomniac Games stepped up to the plate once more with Ratchet and Clank, a reimagining of the first game. With revamped graphics that looked darn near flawless, Ratchet and Clank's epic storytelling and gunplay were the finest in the series yet. It also didn't hurt that there were new planets to explore and the same amazing platforming. Now if we could only go back and erase the CG film from existence. Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. When Uncharted 4: A Thief's End concluded, there was a pall of sadness over Nathan Drake's farewell. Even if it's not quite as amazing, Uncharted: The Lost Legacy is still an excellent follow-up, introducing larger maps and multiple paths for levels along with the new story. Essentially, we're reunited with Uncharted 2's Chloe Fraser as she embarks on a quest with Nadine Ross to capture some treasure as civil war brews in India. Standard combat and sneaking apply, but it's still tons of fun. YAKUZA KIWAMI. YAKUZA KIWAMI is a remake of the first game, which released for PlayStation 2 in 2005. It isn't simply content to tell the story of Kazuma Kiryu and his buddy Akira Nishikiyama though. YAKUZA KIWAMI features additional content, switching combat styles on the fly, and the Majima Everywhere system, where one can battle Majima Goro, well, pretty much anywhere. The same level of graphical fidelity and sound design from Yakuza 0 remains, making Yakuza Kiwami another must-play PS4 title. Gravity Rush 2. How do you manage a platformer that's primarily focused on gravity manipulation? The first Gravity Rush went about it in an interesting way, but Gravity Rush 2 is where the concept truly shines. Protagonist Kat navigates a whimsical world of floating cities, gravity shifting from one location to the next. With new powers and a large new world to explore, Gravity Rush 2 is an extremely underrated title, especially with this year being full of great games. The Last Guardian. Fumito Ueda's games have always explored the relationships between its central characters with a focus on wordless communication. The Last Guardian takes this one step further, as players control a young boy working in conjunction with a large creature named Trico to survive. Taking place across numerous platforming sections with a muted, medieval fantasy aesthetic, The Last Guardian is imperfect. However, its various elements coalesce into an unforgettable tale. Crash Bandicoot N.SANE Trilogy. Comprised of 3 classic platformers remade for the PlayStation 4 with improvements and new features, Crash Bandicoot N.SANE Trilogy is an amazing deal. You could make arguments about the difficulty, which seems to extend to the first game mainly, but the sheer craftsmanship in level design, characters' personalities, and pacing still holds up after all these years. RESOGUN. In the midst of bigger launch titles such as Killzone Shadowfall, RESOGUN was an incredibly solid side-scrolling shooter. Though inherently simple, RESOGUN featured different ships and power-ups, an emphasis on chaining large pools of points together and killing masses of enemies. It was and still remains addicting, feeding that arcade shoot-'em-up desire of just playing one more game. Resident Evil 7. Aside from the typical insert comment about returning to one's roots here, Resident Evil 7 is a fairly paced, delightfully horrific game. The second half may be laden with a bit too much shooting and some odd story twists, but the first-person perspective meshes great with the series' trademark survival horror. Of course, it also doesn't hurt that Resident Evil 7 can be experienced on PlayStation VR, because clearly you hate sleep and blissful dreams. But honestly, it's probably one of the best VR experiences currently out there, so don't miss it. TEARAWAY Unfolded. An expanded remake of the PlayStation Vita title, TEARAWAY Unfolded is a platformer with a twist. The approach to papercraft allows the player to modify the environment with various objects when they're not using aspects like the DualShock 4's light bar to light the way forward. Coupled with its charming aesthetic and lovable characters, TEARAWAY Unfolded is essential for Media Molecule fans and platforming fans in general. Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Story issues aside, Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain is still pretty epic in just about every single way. The missions, the open world, the presentation, you name it. While the stealth gameplay remains the best aspect of the entire experience, The Phantom Pain offered us one more compelling tale of Snake that we'll remember for a long time, even if some of the reasons are far less happy than others. Titanfall 2. Taking the criticism of the first game to heart, Respawn Entertainment crafted an amazing single-player campaign in Titanfall 2, coupled with a fun multiplayer mode. Sure, it has numerous changes from the first game, but Titanfall 2 still maintains the movement and gunplay that we loved so much. With numerous post-launch updates including remastered maps from the first game, Titanfall 2 remains a worthy purchase for FPS fans. REZINFINITE. Describing Rez is tough. How do you describe synesthesia? That too when it's conveyed in a video game. Rez is essentially a rhythmic action shooter on rails with a killer soundtrack and trippy aesthetics. REZINFINITE is a revamped version of the game for PS4 and PlayStation VR. However, there's something utterly compelling about the game's world, like you're being immersed in a digital reality dominated by music. The addition of a new free-flying level only further compels the immersion. Dark Souls 3. The final Dark Souls game, for now that is probably Hidetaka Miyazaki's best. Dark Souls 3 is still an exceedingly fun adventure with memorable boss fights and an aesthetically pleasing, albeit disturbed, world. The hack and slash gameplay is still that compelling mix of difficult and endearing, as the experience ensnares you further and further until you're fighting a nameless king and his Stormdrake in a battle to the death. For all its faults, Dark Souls 3 is still a must-play title. Overwatch. Fact: Overwatch's competitive play houses one of the biggest salt mines in the entire world. That being said, the game itself is a hero shooter that offers unique styles of FPS gameplay as opposed to outright different heroes. The maps range from tightly knit to woefully underbalanced, but Overwatch still combines rich lore with downright fun gameplay that's incredibly addictive. Yes, it started the whole loot box trend, but for the most part the game's free updates and events have been fun. Still, nerf Mercy please. Thanks Blizz. The Witness. Imagine a wide open world, laden with puzzles, but a very thin plot. Of course, it's never that simple when it comes to Jonathan Blow's games, and such is the case with The Witness. As you explore a mysterious island and solve puzzles using logical deduction and perspectives, connecting various parts together, you start to see things in a whole new light. Whether that's the message you take away or not, The Witness is an insightful journey. Grand Theft Auto 5. If you're wondering why Grand Theft Auto 5 is still so popular, look no further than the post-capitalist rants, bank heists, battles with the military and government forces, personal tales of revenge, and a fully featured shared world online mode. Grand Theft Auto 5 is full of things to do for campaign players, and offers excellent longevity for online players, making it perhaps the most feature-packed open-world title available. Nioh. There are only so many options when crafting a Souls-like game, but Nioh borrows a few of those elements while building its own path. Making use of a key management system in place of the stamina and set in Japan during the Sengoku period, Nioh deftly mixes action RPG elements, loot, tougher missions, and a huge campaign. Calling it a Souls clone is almost a disservice given that all the different elements that Nioh expertly juggles. Horizon Zero Dawn. Horizon Zero Dawn packs a surprisingly good story with compelling combat and a grand world to explore. The mix of sci-fi and nature manifests incredibly well, from the game's cauldrons and snowy mountain retreats to the enormous cities and open plains. What it lacks in innovation, Horizon Zero Dawn makes up for with strong quest design, awesome visuals, and a medley of activities like machine hunting, exploration, combat, stealth, platforming, and whatnot. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Many believe The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt to be the greatest game ever made, and despite its various issues on PS4 at launch, it still holds up as a compelling tale with a fantastic open world. The quests are fun, ranging from the comedic to the meaningful, and the sheer level of attention to everything from the writing to the characterization and more is simply phenomenal. It's more than enough to make you forgive the combat and bugs. Persona 5. Did anyone see one of the best RPGs ever coming out in 2017? Hardcore Persona fans probably did, but Persona 5 still brings plenty of turn-based, story-heavy RPG goodness. Whether it's running through various castles to steal treasures as part of the Phantom Thieves, navigating a labyrinth with a talking cat who turns into a van, or partaking in incredibly stylish battles, Persona 5 needs to be played. The Last of Us Remastered. Though earlier released for the PlayStation 3 in 2013, The Last of Us Remastered provided a pretty strong improvement to the game's graphics on PS4. Along with including Left Behind and all multiplayer DLC, The Last of Us Remastered still served as a masterclass in storytelling and nuance. It may have been the most difficult game for directors Bruce Straley and Neil Druckmann to develop, before Uncharted 4 that is, but it still stands as a great third-person survival action game. Bloodborne. From Software didn't have to innovate too much with Bloodborne. After all, it came from the creator of Dark Souls. Surely a similar experience would be enough. Bloodborne went a lot further though. Along with its Lovecraftian-esque environment and story, it implemented an attack-heavy style of gameplay, sidestepping the turtling concerns that plagued Dark Souls and rewarding skillful aggression. Combined with excellent boss battles and intriguing lore, Bloodborne is still a classic. Uncharted 4: A Thief's End. Naughty Dog's masterpiece, and the final chapter of Nathan Drake's tale, went through a trial by fire with its development. That the end result could be this much fun is extremely telling, and it came down to both the minute attention to detail, as well as the epic set pieces and robust storytelling that Naughty Dog is famous for. Uncharted 4 was a tale of realization, both for Naughty Dog and Nathan Drake, in doing what you love, even with all the difficulties that it can bring.
And that'll be about it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing at GamingBolt, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I'll see you guys on the next video.